Hi, welcome back to another episode of Time Out with Gabii. With me here is a drag icon, Felicia Boneé.
Hi.
Welcome to my show.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's an honor to have you here. Like it's been forever we've been talking about this.
Yeah, right. Let's do July, and that just didn't
Right?
happen.
Exactly. Like we went silent in July.
We
But
tried.
yeah, it's great to meet you here. To have you here. So can you talk about how you got your name?
Yeah, so my drag name is, it was given to me by my drag mother, Terry Stevens, back in Calgary when I started drag.
Okay.
I came to her with the idea of Felicia O, like Felicio, but also like Jackie O, kind of that
Well,
vibe.
yeah.
And then she's like, no, that's too jokey, like kind of a name. And so she just kind of sat there and she thought of Boneé, and I'm pretty sure it was because of Felicia Rashad and Lisa Boneé from the Cosby Show, I think it was.
Okay.
No relation, but yeah. So that's kind of where the
Came
the
about.
origins came from, and it was just spelled differently because I'm different like that.
Right? And how many tats do you have?
Tattoos?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to do the count. 1,
'Cause-
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 tattoos. I just got this one actually.
What is
It's a Delvies. It's a
oh,
ghost Pokemon. Just got that in Calgary.
and this one too. Is it complete yet?
Yeah, so this is a Haunter I got, almost 10 years ago. And then I just got this one done by the same artist back in Calgary. And I kind of want to do like a full sleeve of ghost Pokemon. So
Oh my goodness.
got like plans for other spots.
Yeah, I was on your page and I was like, every time I see a picture, it's like a tat with different messages. That is
Yeah.
great. So can you walk us back to your childhood?
Oh my gosh,
And
we're
you're
going
coming
all the
on
way back.
story.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, let me think that far back for a second.
Take your time.
I mean, I always knew I was queer. I always knew I was different. Like, that was never a hard part for me to understand about my identity. It was just a matter of like, I was that queer person that didn't want to like, inconvenience people with my queerness and like, what it would do to my
quiet
family.
one.
And like, I was very like quiet. I was just well behaved. I didn't want to draw attention to myself. A lot has changed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then it wasn't till, gosh, when did I come out? It was after high school. It was while I was in university, actually here at McEwen.
Oh, nice. Full circle.
Yeah, I came out to a friend of mine, and then from there it was like I told one person, and I just like had to tell everyone else. Like obviously I came out as gay first.
Okay.
And a lot of people weren't like surprised. Like it was one of those
Really?
things that I was like, yeah, like, oh, I'm gay, and they're just like, oh, that makes sense. I was like, yeah, cool. Not much has changed really.
Yeah.
Was just able to kind of like express myself and like kind of start finding my identity there. And then it wasn't until after the pandemic, like kind of like during the pandemic, that I kind of realized my transness and like kind of where that came from. Like, you're sitting at home a lot of the time and you're not being observed by people, and you're able to like think and reflect on your life. And I was like, a lot of things would make sense if I thought of myself in a female role in a lot of my past life. And then I was like, maybe I am a female.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that was back in, I think, 2020. And it's been almost 3 years.
Did you ever
2 years.
Did you ever come out to your family?
Facebook came out to my dad for me.
Oh.
Because I had made a profile on Facebook just to basically have access to Messenger, so I could like have people message me, add me to group chats and stuff like that. I thought I made it a private account so it wouldn't be like shared and stuff like that. And then I got a phone call from my dad one night. He's like, do you know like a Felicia Grayson? And I was like, yeah, why? He's like, oh, I got like recommended to add them as a friend on Facebook. And I was like, I don't know why they would, but yeah, that's me. Like,
oh my God.
It was, I hadn't like,
if you don't want to share it, it's okay.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Everything went well. My dad didn't mind at all.
Okay.
He's very supportive. He like didn't care, and we'd obviously like talked since then, and like I'd go to the place for Christmas and stuff like that, and like bring my partner, and he's totally fine with everything. Like the first thing he asked me is like, so the next time I see you, are you gonna have tits? And I was like, hey, that's a weird thing to ask your child. He's from Edmonton. He was born here.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He's an old white guy. My whole family's white as far as like the family that I know. They were my mom had me with a boyfriend in high school who was black, and then they broke up, and then she met my like now stepdad.
Okay.
And yeah, so I was always raised by this like gruff redneck, like
Oh my
Alberta
goodness.
guy.
I can relate.
Yeah,
Sorry, I can relate, but like from previous members on this show, like I can relate to their
similar
experience.
stories.
Like Gabe Autumn as well. He was raised in Alabama, so
Oh wow.
yeah, that was rough.
Wouldn't be able to tell.
So can you walk us on your drag history or
Yeah.
your drag journey?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I started drag in 2012,
Oh my
so it's
god,
been about 11 years. It was in May of 2012 was my first
a
show.
decade already, over a decade.
Girl,
You're a
she's
legend,
seasoned.
right? Professional.
Yeah. It's just a lot of learning how to cover up your mistakes to a point where you seem confident.
And look at
Uh,
you now.
Look at me now, completely confident because I know all the ways I fucked up. We can swear on this thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Fucking right. But yeah, no, I so when I started doing drag, like so sorry, I have to go back to establish kind of how I got there. I was born in Edmonton. I grew up here till I was about 18, and then I
Okay.
moved to Calgary at the end of 2011 for work. And I was like a legal assistant at the time, so like a very corporate job, um, like very different world from like where I am
Me
now.
too. That's what I do right
Oh,
now.
girl, corporate, we love it. Just suiting for
Pays
people
the
like us,
bills.
right? Queer and black, like we really fit in. um, so yeah, so I did that for basically about the same amount of time that I did drag. I did it for about 9.5 years. But yes, when I was in Calgary, like working in this corporate job, I didn't have any creative outlets, and like I went to Victoria School here in
Okay.
Edmonton, so like I was an arts kid, a theater
Oh,
kid, like
great.
I had a lot of, that creative expression that I wanted to get out. And when I moved to Calgary, I just didn't really find anything until like later on. But I would go to the gay bar all the time.
Which one
And
of them?
Twisted Element.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd say the good old days, but they were just the old days. um, but yeah, so then that was kind of my first exposure to like seeing drag like in person. Like I think I'd like heard about it here and there. I knew it existed, but I'd never seen it and experienced it firsthand. And so I would like go and like Saturday nights they'd have these shows and I'd see the performers and I was like, okay, like this is cool. I don't know if it's like for me, but like
Mhm.
it's a fun art form to watch. And then I would do because it was a Saturday night was a like a live show, like a variety show kind of thing. So
Okay.
you could just sign up and perform kind of whatever. It didn't have to be
Okay, like
drag.
an open mic.
Yeah, it was mostly usually drag, but then sometimes there'd be like comedians or singers.
Okay.
And I was like I was going to karaoke a lot there, and I was like, okay, like I'll come and sing like on a Saturday night. So I'd come like out of drag before I started drag, and just sing on these Saturday nights, or whatever. But then when I was in the backstage with other drag performers, that was how I met Terry Stevens, and they would kind of like bug me, like, when are you gonna do drag? When are you gonna start drag? You'd be so good at drag. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if it's for me. And like in my head, I'm like, I don't know, like presenting myself as a woman, like I don't
Yeah.
know if I'd be comfortable.
Honey, let's
with
not go
that.
through that path.
Yeah. So,
Karma.
right. I was like, okay. And then basically they just kept asking me, and one day I was like, you know what, fine, like I'll try it. Like I understand now that it's a performer putting on a costume and putting on a show, like same
Absolutely,
as theater.
yeah.
Like it's literally no different. So I was like, okay, like, and I get to like dance around to a song I like and like try and entertain people. So I went and bought like, a Party City pink Nicki Minaj wig.
Oh, 2011.
She went to
So,
Winners. She got a cute skirt. And Terry Stevens painted me up for the first night. I like looked like kind of a black version of her, but it was the first time I'd seen myself presenting female,
a
and like
different way.
I think in like the back of my mind, like going to the trans stuff, like it clicked that I was like, oh, like I enjoy this presentation. And then when I go to the bar and like I started performing, I was like, oh, like people really like, they respond to this, like they like this, and I like feel more confident when I'm in drag, and I'm able to just do something I enjoy, like performing. So I did Starships by Nicki Minaj for my first performance.
Meant to fly.
The same week that Unique did it on Glee. That's how old I am.
Oh my
So I was
goodness.
like, okay, this is a sign. Apparently, large black women just perform starships, but also like just seeing that representation at the same time I was going through my start of drag was like really
Important.
it was like a good sign and just made me feel a little more confident that this was something I could pursue. And yeah, I did. I started drag in May 2012 and just never really stopped. Like I took like a one break, I think like 5 years into it because I was just kind of
Um,
getting exhausted. Like I was at a point where I was doing a show every week, and
you that
it took me a long
good?
time to get to that point. We don't need to get into that struggle,
Okay.
but I got asked to do the shows on Sundays every week, and so then like there'd be points where, I'd come home from work from my day job, and then I'd be
Yeah.
sitting there like listening to music on my phone, being like, "What am I going to do this weekend? What am I going to perform?" Like I didn't like to repeat songs a lot back then, like especially because I was so new to it. I was like, "There's so many other songs that I want to perform. There's so much that I want to show, so I don't want to redo songs." But then like I didn't know what else to perform, and it would just kind of cause me this stress. And I took a break for about 3 months, and like could not keep that
Um,
like that itch away. Like I was like, I need to like dance, I need to perform, I need to get on a stage again, and um, got back into drag, and yeah.
so when did you move to Edmonton and
So,
take over Edmonton?
well, I don't know about takeover, but I moved back here in 2021. It was right before I left for Call Me Mother, because I got
Okay.
cast for that show while I was in Calgary, and then basically my cousin lives here in Edmonton, and I was able to move in with her while I was on the show, so I didn't have to pay rent like for
Okay.
a house back in Calgary while I was like away for the show and stuff like that. So I like quit my job. I was working at a weed store back then.
Oh my goodness.
Um, Quit my job, made all these looks for the show. Um, I think it was like the day before I left for the show, or like a day or two before I left for the show. I packed everything, moved back to Edmonton, finished my looks for the show as much as I could, and then left. Like it was like all in like a 3 day span
Where
or
was it,
something.
in Edmonton or where was it?
They filmed in Ontario,
Okay.
so like I had to fly out to Ontario, like basically like 2 days after I moved back to Edmonton. So then I didn't really settle back into Edmonton until I got back from the show. Um,
How was the experience then?
on the show,
Yeah.
it was. Did you watch it?
No, like
Okay,
I'm
that's a
new to
common
drag
answer.
scene. I'm new to the drag scene, so I only watched the episode two because, like, obviously I started working at the bar, trying to,
Mm.
because I just graduated last year, right? And like I wanted to get into the community so bad, so that's how I started working at the bar and started seeing, knowing everyone, right?
That's really how it happens for queer people. I find like if it wasn't for the gay bar and like the
Yeah,
friendships and the people
I
that I met
wouldn't
there,
know people.
yeah, like but then you want to meet people like you. You don't just want to
Yeah,
meet, you can
and
go
it
out to a straight bar
yeah,
or something like that. You're not really going to make friends as easily as you would at a gay bar.
true.
Um,
I know Gemma mentioned you were on the show. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So I tried to look for clips, but Gemma was like, you left or you left earlier for some
yeah,
reason.
spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't seen it yet. But on episode 4, I decided to leave the show. Um, it was honestly like a decision that I was really okay with by the point that I made it. Um, there's a lot that happens behind the scenes on a television show that you don't see. I'm sure you've heard that with like Drag Race and stuff
Yeah, I
like
spoke
that.
to Michaela too.
Yeah, she went through a very similar experience, where you're just like you're told that it's going to be a diverse set and everyone's going to be understanding and like of your queerness and your like race and stuff like that. And then I was on this set with a bunch of white people who, if I had any sort of like problems that I thought might be related to like my race or something that was making me uncomfortable, like I would try to talk to people about it and they couldn't understand where I was coming from. They didn't know what to say or to do. And the only person that I could talk to was Peppermint, and she was highly unavailable for the majority of the time we were on set. So I didn't really have anyone to connect with except for, the only other black person who left on episode 2.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I just kind of like had that struggle. There was a couple other issues with some of the other people of color on the show dealing with kind of behind the scenes stuff that were being said to them, and we're literally having like discussions with producers 10 minutes before we have to go be on set and be smiley and happy and go make a dress or something. So you don't really have time to process it.
Yeah.
And so that combined with the fact that we were being rushed for like certain things, but then like they'll take forever to give you like rehearsal time or something like that. Like I was starting to click that a lot of that was like intentional. Like they're trying to like stress you out basically, make you at a disadvantage. Like by the episode that because it was the episode we were in the bottom was episode 4, so it was like the first time we were in the bottom for the whole show, and I could tell that we were going to be in the bottom before because they were like withholding the rehearsal time or like changing things last minute. Peppermint left in the middle of the day without telling us, so we didn't have access to her to like help us with our challenge. And so I was like, oh, they really don't want us to like succeed this week. And then we were watching the performances and stuff like that, and we're like, okay, I don't think we'll be in the bottom. And then they put us in the bottom. And so I was like, in my head before, I was like, hey, I'm dealing with all this stress about people not being able to understand me. I don't have anyone I can talk to about like the way I'm feeling as like a Black queer person on this set, a Black trans woman. Like I would try to talk to producers and stuff like that, and it was just never able to be resolved. And I was like, okay, like I'm stressed out. They're pushing us like all these like producer tricks to like produce the show behind the scenes. I just don't want to play by these rules anymore when I was kind of misrepresented what I would be expecting like to be on there. Like I thought they said that we'd have access to the mothers and to like they didn't say therapy, but like I thought there'd be someone to talk to that wasn't just like a producer who's more concerned with their personal job. Yeah. So sorry if I'm getting off track. It's a lot.
That's okay.
But yeah, so then the episode that we're in the bottom, I was like, okay, like they put us in the bottom. I don't know if I'm going to be the one to leave, but like if I'm going to be the one they're going to kick off this episode, but like I'm going to leave regardless, I think, because like I can't do this anymore. And so they ended up putting my teammate like being the one that they were going to kick off, Toddy. And I was like, actually, can I say something? And then like I stood on stage for like probably like 10-15 minutes talking and being like, yeah, like this and this and this, and like I just can't like deal with this stress when I don't have the resources. I don't have like friends and family available. I don't have anyone else here in the cast. I don't have anyone, like I can't talk to Peppermint. Like I can't do this anymore. And then like they edited into like a 5-second moment of me being like, I'm so weak, I just can't do this, I have to leave. Yeah.
Did anyone try to stop you, like talk you into not leaving?
Like the aunties. So it happened, and Peppermint, her first reaction was like, basically, you like requesting to leave and saying you want to leave might mean that you have to leave, basically being like, you're kind of pulling that like breach of contract moment almost.
Oh my goodness.
And she like got up and left the judging table to go like talk to the producers, and I'm just standing there and being like, whatever, like honestly, like.
Was that aired as well?
No, none of that.
They would.
I got like the aunties were talking to me while Peppermint was gone, because there's like kind of guest judges that are on the panel, just being like, as long as this is something that like you can like stand behind, it's what you need, like you're being true to yourself and stuff like that. I was like, oh, I'm being very true to myself. Like I don't want to take shit if I can find a way to avoid it, basically. I'm like, honestly, like this cash prize, the prizes, like
you already know the winner before the.
I knew I was gonna be the winner. That was the thing.
Oh, great!
Like I could tell that a lot of the challenges were being set up to things that I like said in my audition tape I was good at, and like I don't mean to sound like conceited, like, oh, like I knew I was gonna win. Like it was like, no, like you can feel when you're there who is supposed to do well and who is not supposed to do well, and I was being set up to do well a lot of the times, and I just didn't feel like I was earning it at all, which is like weird to say, because it's like, oh no, poor me, they set me up to win. But like I wanted it to be fair. I wanted it to be like just the way they were doing eliminations. Even it was just like they were doing it formulaically instead of judging people based on what they presented that week. And I was like, hey, no, this is just not like what I was expecting this whole experience to be like. Yeah. So
Oh my
It was a
goodness.
lot. You can take that from me, Will. Edit it however you need.
I don't edit my
Oh,
videos.
good. Get the full
Yeah,
ramble.
right. Did you pay your flight back to Edmonton? Did they cover
Like
that?
when I left the show?
Yeah.
Oh, they handled all the flights and everything
Okay.
like that, yeah.
So sorry you had to go through that. Like that's one thing. I feel as a black person that one has to be mentally prepared for. You know, in a space filled with a lot of um how do I sound? I don't sound ridiculous.
No, speak your truth, girl.
In a place filled with non people that are different from you, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to work times two, you have to prove yourself that yo, I can do this. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. And
Even in the drag scene to this day, you know, I see some things and I'm like, honey, like I don't wanna so before I became a drag person, I used to rant on Instagram. Like, if you do shit to me, like I will call you out because I have
ooh,
friends with a
drama.
lot of followers. Exactly, right? Um, but then I noticed someone told me that if I'm always doing that, it's not going to be good for my reputation. So that way, I
How
was
dare you
like,
speak your truth?
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I'm seeing you in the drag scene. I wouldn't want to be the person that's always like out there calling this person out, calling this person out. You know, there's this one person who. So let's say, for example, there's this one person in the drag scene that I've walked up to and I've been like, "Hi, I want to get this, I want to get that," you know. And this person was like, "Oh, sure," you know. I follow the person on Instagram. The person wouldn't follow back, you know. But then a twink comes into
Not
the
a
drag
twink.
scene today and you're calling the person, oh, you need a dress, you need a hair, you needed this, you needed that. Like, but honey, I came to you and I even offered to pay this person. And they were like, oh, you didn't give me enough time. And I'm like, okay, honey, like,
They just gotta make it more difficult for you.
exactly. That's why when I see people say good things about this person, I'm like, that's okay. I understand how this
Say their
works.
name.
I
You can bleep it. Text me later.
Okay, great. You know, and I'm like, oh, so this bitch is as a mother hen to this people, but then you're not a mother hen to certain people. I'm
To
like,
anyone else. Yeah.
honey,
Who you're
like,
choosing who you want to
absolutely.
give
And
that
I'm
attention to.
trying to, I have some friends that convince me that, oh, this is not how we all are.
Mm-hmm.
So that way I'm able to like be sane, think properly and think straight and not have like this defensive thought all the time or
Yes.
defensive attitude all
You
the
can't
time.
dwell on it because you go crazy.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad we're able to take yourself out of that toxic space. I know when I spoke to Michaela, it was just like she held back a little things because she didn't really want to say too much, but she told me off the camera things that happened,
Mm.
and I'm like, that is one reason why I also don't even try to apply for things like that, you know, because and Pepe told me some things too, you know, and I was like, first of all, they know who the winner is, so you're
Yeah.
just going there to waste your time and do. Did they pay you?
They gave us like $2,000. You get
Okay.
1,000 before you leave and 1,000 after, but it's mostly like to help with expenses and stuff like that.
Okay. You
Um,
imagine you left your job for that.
oh well, and then that was the thing is that a lot of us, especially while we're there, we're like, oh, this is going to be so good. We're going to make so much money. We're going to be traveling all the time. We thought it was going to be just as big as Drag Race. We were very wrong. So yeah, yeah, like if I had known kind of what to expect going into that situation, I think I could have handled it a little better. Um, but now, like, obviously, I'm going to be going to school in the fall, so like for the next year,
Okay.
I won't be able to like apply for Drag Race or anything like that. But I know if I do go to Drag Race in the future, kind of what to expect, and like it's that thing. It's like if you get there, even if you know you're not going to be the winner, you just have to lean into, well, then what am I going to represent while I'm there? Like regardless if you think you're going to win or not, what are you there to represent and what are you going to do
Absolutely.
after you're off the show? Like that's what you have to
Exactly.
focus on. It's
Plus,
not about being on the show and getting all that attention from being on the show and hoping your career is going to build
pick.
off of that, because like as soon as you're off the show, you have to make yourself relevant.
Yeah. I mean, plus now you have an insight on how it's gonna be and what to expect as well. But I
Yeah,
hate like Drag Race. People are actually times 10 worse than the.
it's a lot. Well, we actually had one of the producers from the first season of Canada's Drag Race
Oh, on that
producing
one.
Call
Oh
Me
my
Mother.
god.
So there was a lot of similarities. I actually like called him out once because he like directly said like that RuPaul quote of like, well, what you say when the camera isn't rolling doesn't matter. I was like, okay, RuPaul, like, calm down. Yeah.
So, on to what's next for you. You mentioned you were going to start school in the fall. What are
Yeah.
you taking?
I'm going to MC College for their fashion design and merchandising program. So, you know,
Okay.
I'm a very fashionable person, wearing cut off t-shirts and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But I know, like, one of the things that like drag kind of gave me was an affinity for sewing. Like I've been
Show your
making
talent,
a lot of
yeah.
my costumes and stuff like that lately, and I've just
Even the
been like,
hats, like I love them so much.
thanks. Those are just like fun things that like I would think up and be like, okay, I know how I'm gonna make this happen. And like that's the best thing about drag is that like a lot of it just comes from your own ingenuity. Um, but like it just made me realize how much I enjoy sewing, like just the physical act of like, you know, cutting out pattern pieces and sticking them together, and then all of a sudden you have a dress. And I was like, okay, like I could see myself doing this in a capacity where I've like learned more about how to actually like do things properly. Because right now everything I learned about sewing is just from experience. It's just from trial and error, YouTube videos, stuff like that.
Oh, so
So
what did you do at Victoria?
for what's right? Oh,
What?
at Victoria School,
Yeah.
I was like a dance kid and
Oh, nice. You
like
took
theater
dance.
kid, drama, like so like stuff on stage, but not really like behind the scenes. But it also made me realize a lot of the stuff that I would enjoy about being behind the scenes, like tech and stuff like that. Yeah. And then like costuming and stuff like that. So that's something that I would like, you know, even if I don't go into a fashion design, like open a label or something like that after school, I could have that experience of how to do costuming. I could work with theater companies. I could use those skills somewhere else and still be
Yeah.
doing something that I enjoy. So that's kind of my thought. Like I love drag, but I don't want to keep relying on drag as my like income. Like right now, like since I got back from the show, that's the only job I've had has
Oh,
been doing drag
great.
for about 2 years now. And thankfully, I live with my partner who's able to help support me, and like you know I can pay a little bit less in rent because the only money I'm making off
Yeah.
is gigs. Um, but like I've been able to like you know still support myself enough with just doing drag. But like I know that that's not going to be the case forever unless I really lean into it, and I'd have to like travel more and do more jobs and do more stuff. And I just like I hate traveling for drag.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a
um,
lot. You're packing this, you're packing
oh,
that, you're going there, you don't know the crowd you're going to meet over there.
trying to fit 50 pounds worth of drag into one suitcase is a mystery to me. Like packing for the show, it was so troublesome. And then, like last summer, I went to Vancouver for 2.5 weeks doing their the Peony. It's like their
Okay.
exhibition. I was doing a show there basically every day, twice a day. Uh, we did this like drag legends show.
Okay.
So we were all in person. There's four of us impersonating different celebrities. We had Cher, Madonna, Lady Gaga, and I was Tina Turner.
Well, great. Yeah, I
Uh,
think I saw that.
yeah, so I did that. I did Proud Mary twice a day, every day for 2.5 weeks.
Oh my
It
god.
was a
The pay
lot.
was worth it, I
The pay
guess.
was not worth it because it would have been worth it if I lived in Vancouver, but I had to pay a lot for
Oh,
my flight and
you paid
for
for yourself?
because they gave me the money up front, but then I had to pay for my Airbnb. I had to pay for my flights, like my living expenses while I was there. Like, so they gave
You,
me a good chunk of money, but I had to use a good chunk of money to be there. But it was kind of those like, it'd be good for my career, it'd be good for my experience. So I was like, I want to do it.
yeah.
And then when I was there, I was kind of miserable a lot of the time. Like I enjoyed the performance aspect, I enjoyed the people I was working with, but like I didn't like being away from home. I didn't like having like, you know, there's comforts and especially for such a long period of time and like
2 weeks.
being away from my partner. I was
Yeah.
dating another person at the time too. I'm poly.
Okay.
Um, and like, so I think it was just like the fact that it all just kind of built up at that point last year. I was just like, no, I don't want to do this again next year. I don't want to like travel very often. And like, I've done it like, you know, last winter I did a small, kind of like Christmas tour with two of the people from Call Me Mother. And that was like I think only like a week and a half or so, but I was in BC for like the majority of it. Again, like in unfamiliar places, away from my
Yeah.
partner. Like I just didn't enjoy it as much. Like it wasn't fun for me, and to me it didn't feel worth it from the future of my career. So I'm trying to overtalk the rolling.
It's gonna blip it out.
It'll cut it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just kind of came to that realization. I was like, I want to do something that I can rely on, that'll keep me closer to home if I can help it. I can still do drag if I like want, or when I can, like around it, but I don't want to rely on having to do drag all the time. I want to be able to have like a future outside of drag, but can still be connected to drag, because I can still make costumes for myself. I can make costumes for other people. Girl, I'll make you a dress. But like,
right. Do you take commissions?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, girl.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Tell your friends.
You guys better patronize her, honey.
Girl, I know what I'm doing, and I'm about to learn a whole lot more in school.
Absolutely. A master.
Right? But no, that's really where I want to kind of like go with my future in drag, is more of a support role, I guess, like for like other performers.
As the legend that you are,
you know, like,
right?
yeah, like, well,
taking a step back.
Speaking of legends, like Ruby Hyman, like she's been performing for years. Like I remember meeting Ruby Hyman years ago back when I started drag, and she'd been doing it for a bit. And she was like always making costumes for herself, and then she's got to the point now in Edmonton where she's making costumes for
people,
everyone. But then she still does performances once in a while, and it's kind of like, it's less like, I don't want to say less work. It's just like she has more opportunities to help the community, and then kind of can just perform whenever she wants. And like, it's more about that. Ooh, girl,
it's flying.
Get away. Yeah, so that's kind of like where I hope to see myself in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe even better.
We'll see. I don't want to say I'll be better.
Honey, you can be better. So how did you meet your partner?
I actually met him.
You both do drag.
Yeah, I met him through drag, actually. We did a show together like I guess 2 Augusts ago, like 2 summers ago. And I like didn't know anything about him at all. And then like he was just kind of like in my sphere or whatever, and then I was booking a show, one of the first shows that I like hosted when I came back from Calm Mother, and I saw that he had posted in the like Party Queens group chat or something about wanting to be booked for more shows and like looking for more opportunities when he could. And I was like, yeah, I mean, you're cute. I'll book you for a show.
Oh, right,
like, I like your drag. Sorry, I like your drag and you're cute. That's the order it should have been in. But I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, you know, and I always like to make sure I book a lot of drag kings in my shows.
Yeah.
Like, if not more so than drag queens, just to have more of a balance. And we did that first show together, and literally like I thought he was dating someone else at the time. So when I went on stage after his number, I was like, oh, like he's so cute, like look at him, like too bad he's dating someone else. And then at the end of the show, he came up to me and he was like, hey, by the way, like I heard you said that I was dating someone else, but I'm not. And I was like, oh. And then he's like, yeah, like maybe we should like hang out or something. And then like we just started texting.
Just like that.
Literally, it was the easiest
love story
connection I've ever had. Because usually I like, he was the first queer person I've ever dated. Like I've always dated straight guys. Joy. Another reason that I knew I was trans, reflecting on my dating lifestyle. Because a lot of guys that I dated were guys who were straight, but they were always hanging out at the gay bar and stuff like that, and they really liked me when I was in drag, and so like, you know, they weren't straight, but
just fantastic people.
Yeah. But then yeah, he's trans. He's a drag performer. We had like a lot in common already, and I just found our connection really like instantaneous. It was very comfortable. I didn't find I had to explain myself to him or anything like that. Like just it was just so nice. Like we would just literally started texting and just haven't stopped since.
That just reminded me of someone I met, and they were like, "Oh, if I touch it, would it hurt? If I do this, will it hurt?" I'm like, "Honey, I'm human." Bitch.
Literally. Like, what would you do with anyone else?
It's fun.
But it's just nice when you find that connection with someone who like you do have that much in common with, like just like on a queerness level, on your professional level. Yeah, I don't know.
What would you say your best performance is?
My best performance? I actually like did really enjoy doing the Proud Mary number. For the Peony. It was because it was a number that I was doing so frequently. I was able to
Embody it.
really embody it. And like, you know, when you like try something, like the first time you do a number, you can practice it at home and stuff like that. You can finesse it however you want. But it's until you get in front of an audience that you know how people are going to react to certain things.
Exactly, and then you put them in place. Yeah.
And so then as I was performing, you know, I'd do one show one day and I'd be like, okay, like that worked, that didn't. So then the next show I'd be like, okay, I'm going to try something different. And then like every day after, I had 2 weeks to really finesse this number down to what it is now and something I'm really proud of. Yeah. And then other than that, like I wouldn't say I have like favorite performances, but I've had like favorite opportunities in drag. I've gotten to perform for oh god, now I can't remember his last name, Nile Rodgers.
Okay.
He's a music producer. He's worked with like Alex Newell, Lady Gaga, a lot of people. He was in town for, I think, when the Cher concert was in Calgary.
Okay.
They were the opening band, and they came to the gay bar for one of their singers' birthdays. And so, like I was in the show for it. And I was like, oh my god, like I get to perform a song that he produced in front of him, like, and he like came up and tipped me, and he was filming it, and like had such a good time. So like that felt really good. Yeah, now I'm blanking on any other opportunities I've had, but I've had some really cool opportunities.
I feel like you and Gemma have been everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, going out to talk to people, doing one thing or the other, that's great. I mean, you're representing us because we don't get a lot of representation here.
Well,
if it's not you or Pepe, but I hope people who book shows book more dark-skinned people.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, there are people who are out there saying, oh, I'm booking a black cast, and then the black cast looks like a white person. Honey, come on.
Well, it's funny because in Calgary, there is not that many performers of color.
I just know DJ
Dana Hart.
That's who
Tangerine Dream.
Okay, I know that person.
There used to be the very best. They're a drag king, but they moved to, I think, Quebec or Toronto or somewhere. So there was like a very small amount of us. So then anytime people would be like, oh, we need more diversity in our shows, they would call us. They call, you know, the one Indigenous performer that we had, like, it was primarily a white, I mean, it's a pretty white city, but so I think it's just statistically, it's like there wouldn't be that many performers of color. And then I came to Edmonton and I was like, wow, we could actually have a full, you know, Gemma's Dollhouse, you can have a full cast of trans performers. You can have full shows of POC performers. Like, the diversity in Edmonton is a lot greater, which is why I find it so funny that there's still a lack of performers of color in a lot of these shows. Like, I'm like, I just think still, if you're hosting a show and you at the most have one performer of color, like black or otherwise, you're not doing enough. Like, and I don't think that's based on, like, people like to say, they're like, oh, like I like to make sure that I have a minimum of, like, you know, 2 black people per show or something like that. And it's like, okay, that's fine. Like, you're trying, you're putting in that effort. But like for me, when I book a show, I'm not booking it based on like who's white, who's black, who's Asian. Like, I'm like, who do I like? And then I'll break it down from there. And then if I realize I've booked a really white cast or something like that, then obviously I'll adjust. But a lot of the times my shows would be really diverse just based on what was available to me and what I enjoyed working with.
Yeah, you must have a drag king disabled person of color. Yeah. You know, yeah, it is what it is. But I just hope they watch this and change their ways, you know, because I spoke to Gemma and some other people who booked, and they were like, either they book people who sell tickets or they book people who are their friends or people who show up on time. And I'm like, okay.
Well, yeah, but then if you stick to that all the time, then you're not giving those other people opportunities. And like, you can say like, oh, well, I gave them an opportunity and they didn't do a good job, or they came late or something like that. It's okay, but at least you're trying.
Yeah.
And don't revert back to like, well, I'm just going to do what I always do then.
Yeah.
Because then you're still not pushing yourself to make changes. You're not pushing the community forward. You're pushing together this small group
of people.
Yeah.
Which is funny, you know, because I spoke to Sheila Zahn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I was like, if you were in the scene, you would have been one of those people who they just booked to create a diverse
the
team.
Diversity hire.
And not exactly.
Girl.
I was that in one of my previous job. They hired like one of the workers' niece. And they called me when someone quit. I was like, what the But I'm like, well, good thing they hired me.
I mean, it's typecasting, it's still cast.
Exactly. And like I'm like, if you're in the scene, you would have been one of those diversity higher people. They wouldn't have seen you as a mainstream. And that's one problem I think Edmonton is suffering from.
Mm-hmm.
From the bookers to the people they're booking, because if they're always booking a particular person, and you're trying to push that person forward, honey, but you never know tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like you have to give everybody an opportunity, and I think this also comes with I'll keep my thoughts
That's a
to
big sigh.
myself. I'll keep my thoughts to myself. Um, but I feel the same group of people, like you're booking me, I'm booking, you're booking me, I'm booking, and booking someone else is like, I don't really know them that much. But honey, you need to give them the opportunity. That's why people like Ladonna, people like Gemma, people like Plastica, who usually hire like new drag performers, who
Yeah.
usually give people opportunities. Like, thank you for that, because not everyone can do that, and not everyone does that. But I just hope people learn from them. You know.
One thing that I learned when I was in Calgary, and that's another thing I'll get into. But when I was in Calgary, I had a lot more opportunity to book shows and to put on like produce my own shows. And like I said, like I would try to build a diverse cast that I liked, but at the same time, in that diversity, I was also booking performers who might not have as many opportunities as the other
Yeah.
performers. So you still want, more experienced performers or bigger names
Sell tickets.
to
Yeah.
sell tickets and to make sure that you're putting on an entertaining show. But then if I can throw in this one performer or these two performers
It won't
who
hurt.
I've seen them, I know they're not terrible. I know they'll put in the work to put on a good show. Like they're not going to embarrass me or something, which like that's what's important. I was like, I want to put on someone with a work ethic. I don't
Yeah.
care, how polished their drag is, as long as they're going to show up and like try to present their best. And so that was something I always like tried to make sure that I was doing, was including these people. So I'm not just booking all these bigger names people. But then that's the other issue that I kind of realized coming to Edmonton, is that a lot of the opportunities, and it's the same in Calgary a lot of the time too, but all of the shows that I'm aware of are produced and hosted by white people. And there's obviously nothing wrong with that if they're given these opportunities and they get these opportunities, but it shuts out a lot of opportunities for people of color
Yeah.
to a point where it's monopolized by not people of color, where there's nowhere where you can really go to get new shows or to get opportunities.
Or people who say they book people of color and book just
They'll
one
book one
person
of
of
them
color.
in their
I'm like,
show.
yeah,
Like, or where this quota that they have to reach every so often, or
yeah.
when Black History Month comes along, then you got all these white producers coming to you being like, oh girl, I'm doing a show, I'd like you to be in it. And I was like, okay, but like, why aren't you giving this opportunity to a
Out
person
of
of color,
yeah.
like especially in Black History Month, but like even just like giving us more opportunities to produce shows, to host shows, or to book shows or something like that. Like I've just kind of like, I don't want to say given up, but like I've just stopped trying.
Yeah, I guess that's why most people get discouraged,
Yeah.
because I feel like there's a lot of talented people out there, but like most of them are like, what am I coming to here? I wouldn't say I regret starting drag, but like, I wish I had planned ahead before coming. I wish I knew what I was getting into. I'm still thankful for the bookings I get. Like, I still get booked. Thank you all.
Absolutely.
But like, how about people who do not get booked? People who they perform the ones as Gemma's. Because if Gemma wasn't doing this,
Fresh fruits.
honey, a lot of people wouldn't get booked.
Well, and that's sorry, that's a whole different conversation. But like, there's so many performers in Edmonton. Like Calgary, there's a couple of people every couple months or something that are kind of newer coming up. But like in Edmonton, it's like
Every
everyone
day,
wants to be a drag
yeah,
performer, and that is
without knowing what they're going into.
and that's the problem, is that that's the only opportunity that those performers have, and they have to join this wait list, and there's like 100 people in this wait list because everyone wants to try drag once, and then they do the fresh fruits show and then they don't get booked for anything
Again,
else,
yeah.
because if you're not at that show, you don't know what they can do. You don't know they exist half the time, because there's 50 people that you could pick from when you're booking a show. And then that's the thing, is like a lot of the times that people are doing their shows, they're not booking any of those newer
New people,
performers.
yeah.
They're booking the people they know, or say they're reliable, or they're those bigger draws or something.
Because if you don't give me an opportunity to show my talent, how are you gonna know I can do splits and dips and death drops, right? So
Girl, You
I
gotta
just
wait your turn.
you just have to make friends because like if I didn't work at the bar, there are times I think about it. If I didn't work at the bar, I wondered how my path would have been because I know there's some people out there that are like, oh, let me see who's gonna book you.
Yeah.
So you also have to be on people's good side as well. You know, you have to. It's just it's just crazy. You know, being a person of color, you have to like work times
Oh,
two. You know, there are times of seeing people perform and all they do is this and the crowd is going wild
don't
and
call out Onika like that. Love you, girl.
you know, and the crowd like goes wild, and I'm like, holy, like, if I do that, are y'all gonna come to my next show? Like the fuck?
Well, and that's the thing is like there are people like Onika who have established their style, and she's obviously a very glamorous performer. She
Yeah,
puts a lot of effort into her look and stuff like that. So people aren't expecting her to spin
dance,
around and dance
yeah.
and do all those tricks when you're wearing like a 10-foot wig and then beaded gown, like.
True, yeah.
But then like that's the thing is like unless you're gonna make that your style or make that your kind of aesthetic, um, you have to. I think it just comes down to like you have to figure out what you enjoy doing and lean into it. Um, because that's the biggest thing is like if you're trying to be someone else, if you're trying to do something that you
Yeah,
don't relate to, it's going to show. People are going to tell that you're not comfortable or you're like, obviously try new things so you find out what that is. But once you find out what you enjoy doing, just keep doing that.
absolutely. That's why at times, like, I feel most people don't really go for talents these days. They just go for, like I mentioned earlier, who's my friend, who's not my friend, you know.
Yeah.
And I think skin color also plays a role in bookings, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not my place to talk about.
I mean, all I can say is that I think people should book more than their friends.
You know, I think absolutely. I think the only black people I know in the scene, I might be wrong, is just you, Pepe, and what's his name? Is it Drag King?
A black drag king? Oh, Shay.
Yeah, Shay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the three of you, and myself included. I
Honey
mean,
Dijon.
selling Honey Dijon.
Yeah.
I mean, the light skin, but yeah, I would include them
What do you
into
call
that.
me?
Honey, you're part of them. Yeah, Honey, and Celine. I
Yeah.
think Celine is white, but
I
okay.
think she's half. Have
I'm just
something.
kidding. I think yeah, we're not that much, you know, but like, how many times do we get booked a month? Except from you and Pepe, who have like the
Or but you see them, one of them per show a lot of the time, or maybe two of us on this like rotation almost. Because everyone's like, okay, like I booked all my friends and I'll throw in a black person.
yeah.
Like, or like not saying they're not friends with the black people, but like a lot of the times there's only so many of us performers of color. And then you just get either slotted in because you're someone's friend or because you're the diversity hire.
Like so, what's Honey? Honey's really a great performer. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um,
We should start our own show.
exactly. That's the thing. You know, I was thinking of pitching that idea to Gemma, but I'm like, I don't really think I'm ready for that yet because I'm just 6 months into doing drag. So,
Girl, if you have the idea, lean into it.
right, and I heard Weeby was just started doing drag at 4 months into the show.
Ugh.
And I'm like, okay,
Well, they
honey.
did a good job.
Right?
They won.
Anywho, what would you say is your least favorite performance?
My least favorite performance? Oh God. Um, just because I used to drink and smoke a lot. I don't remember a lot of the earlier years.
The earlier years.
Actually, no, there is one performance that I really it sticks out in my mind as something that I was excited to try, and the audience didn't respond at all.
I understand how that feels.
Yeah, I had this dress that I made. It was like a gown. It was kind of this like off the shoulder kind of like neon green and purple dress, and I really liked
Nice.
it. I had like flat ironed this like long purple hair. I did my whole face that night, and I had this song. It was like this like EDM song, but it's like like those kind of EDM songs with a black girl singing over top of it. So like super sassy, kind of that like '90s vibe. It just wasn't like that popular of a song, I don't think, but I loved the song and I wanted to perform it in this gown. Like it's like a dancey song, but I was like, okay, like this is kind of like where I think my
Breakthrough is gonna come.
yeah, like this is like me trying something new. And I get out there and I'm doing the song, and like literally there's people in the audience sitting like,
Honey, come on.
The whole time. And like usually
So our
people are like at least bopping
superstar,
or something. I mean, I wasn't that much of a superstar back then,
right? I'm just
but
kidding.
but no, like it was just kind of disheartening to see that
But
like
you know,
something that I was excited
if a
about.
white person had done that, they would really bop to it.
Oh,
They would bop to it. Trust me, honey.
phew. There was a lot of
I've
that.
been to shows, I've seen things, and I'm like, oh, this person did it. You get people on their phones, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay,
I
honey.
was like, okay, pay attention at
You
least.
do exactly.
I had so when I started doing drag, it was, like back in 2012, and then uh slowly after I started doing drag race got more popular. Like I started drag basically right after season 4.
Hmm.
That's how I measure my life in drag race seasons. So I started drag just after season 4 had finished airing, right before season 5 came out. And I think season 5 was kind of like, at least in the queer community, when Drag Race started to catch on. It wasn't until season 8 that the straights got into it because it was on Netflix.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's just how I remember the world. But so once drag started to get more popular, season 6 came out, season 7 came out. You had people like Miss Fame, Pearl, like those were really like drawn to those newer, younger performers. And so we had people like Stephanie Prince in Calgary, who started coming up in drag after I did. It's kind of like high school, like you start as a sophomore, and then by the time
Yeah.
you're a senior, there's new sophomores coming up behind you. And Stephanie was kind of that new, younger generation of drag that wasn't very influenced by Drag Race. They got into drag because of Drag Race. They would, be flipping their, human hair wigs and Naomi Smallsing about. But like, it was just fine. Like you could find what you connect with. But it would be to a point where I would come out and do something that I'd done for the past couple of years that I've been doing drag, like a theater song or like just like this dance song that I liked. And people would they'd be like, okay, that's good. And then you'd have Stephanie Prince or one
Just
of the other
flip their
girls come
hair.
out and like flip their hair and just be sexy. And people are like, yes, throwing their
Take my
money,
money.
like just going wild
Come
for
on,
it. And I was
honey.
like, okay, like this perception is shifting from what people expect from drag to now they expect what they see on television, and like that has continued, and it's still now like if you do a drag
Oh
show and you're
yeah,
not doing the
true,
splits or a
true.
dip, people are like, why are you here then? Like,
Plus, I think because yes, I know it's drag material, but I think that is more ballroom material.
yeah,
The splitting, the
like go watch Legendary.
walks, exactly right. So that's what I think. But then I'm like, well, if that's what people consider as drag, like no shade to my loved ones who do that, but like,
But there's so much more to drag and to ballroom. There's so much
yeah,
ballroom that isn't about the flips and the
yeah,
dips.
also dance
And same
included.
with drag. Like drag is art, it's expression. It's you could stand on stage in the center of the stage and perform like a park and bark
Yeah.
and do this like emotional heartfelt ballad. That's just as valid as someone who's going to come out and like flip their hair around and do a cartwheel into a split. Like
Yeah.
it is just a matter of what you can do and how you entertain and like what's important to you as a performer. Like, yeah. And if you can do those tricks and something like that, go for it. Just don't hurt yourself.
Um, I mean,
Practice
I
like
tried it that
good
drop
knees.
once.
Support your knees, girl. You only get one set.
I tried it that drop once, and I was driving to work the next, day, and I was like, "Why does my knee
Your whole body is just like, what was that? Like, yeah,
hurt?" You wouldn't feel it instantly. The next morning, I was like,
I death dropped for a very small portion of my drag career because I was like, everyone's doing it. I have to like come up with
"Yeah,
this trick. Like I can't do the splits, but like I can figure out how to death
oh, I
drop.
can
And
do the split."
oh, girl,
I
you do
stretch
it.
now.
Oh, please stretch. I've seen too many people like rip their hamstrings.
Yeah, I almost hurt myself because I did it twice in one show,
Oh, girl.
which was crazy. The first one they went crazy. The second one I didn't even do the full split. So it was like a half one.
Oh,
I was like, I shouldn't
as
have
long
done
as you
this.
stretch, it's important.
Now I just like lay on the bed and make sure my legs can touch my wall.
If you can do that, girl, go for
So
it.
that's what I try to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what's your thought about? I know in my previous episode, someone mentioned you received some hate speech when you went to
Mm,
read a book for kids.
yes.
So what's your thought about people who do those kind of protesting and all those nonsense?
They have nothing better to do. Apparently, that's my thought. Like
Right?
they get
If
mad
you
when I
had a
say
job,
that.
you wouldn't be here.
Literally, I was like, do you have anywhere else you could be right now that would be more productive. Like, but they
Exactly.
think they're being productive. They think they're fighting something that, like, I was like, I was paid to be here. Like, I didn't
Absolutely.
ask to be like, oh my God, can I come read to your little children and like
Why
get
would I
exposed?
even want to be close to a
I'm not
child?
a big fan of children.
Exactly.
But if I'm paid to be there, you know, in that capacity where I just have to sit there and read a book and dance around to
It's
some
just a
Katy
book.
Perry, like it's just a book. I'm reading a book about like being yourself and loving yourself, or like having a different family or something like that, that are publicly available books to anyone else who can go to the
That was
library.
set by the school as well.
Like they asked me to be there. They provided the reading materials that they wanted me to do. I'm just showing up, but because I'm that um, avatar, they want to attack me specifically, not the institution doing it necessarily, not the parents bringing their kids there. And they do talk like smack about the libraries and the parents and stuff like that. But like, I don't know. I
It's
just, we had a protest at a drag show in Beaumont earlier
hmm,
this summer, and I was feeling spicy, so I went outside to try to like talk to them. I say try to talk to them because they don't want to talk. They want to spew hate, literally. Like this woman was holding a sign saying like "Go woke, go broke," and I was like, so like, what are you even doing here? Like, what are you trying to achieve?
exactly
Like,
make
are you
money.
trying to end the show? Do you want people to leave? Do you want like parents to not bring their kids to this? Like, what is your goal? She's like, we're coming here to wake you up to what you're doing and like let you
Stop
know what you're doing.
sleeping.
And I was like, but girl, you're calling us woke. Which is it? You
Exactly.
already say we're awake. Like, I don't get it. And one guy was wearing like a blackface T-shirt, and just he compared drag to strippers, but he's like, well, they don't do, you know, they don't let kids at this like strip club. Like he named the strip club. I didn't know it was a strip club. He just like named it. And I was like, what? Like, what even is that place? He's like, oh, it's the strip club. And I was like, well, of course they don't have kids at the strip club.
Exactly.
You know, telling him, and he's like, you know, like men shouldn't be shaking their asses in front of children. And I was like, then what do
Man,
you call
the fuck
cheerleading?
is
Is okay if women do it? Like,
exactly.
have you been to a football game in the past decade? Like,
Men should be shaking their
it's just misogyny. They just don't want to see
Mhm.
anything presenting as female that they don't approve of, basically.
I think most of these people don't even have kids, but they're
They
out there
don't.
fighting for a lost cause.
One of them said that they had a gay nephew, and I was like, I'm sure he's real proud of you right
Right?
now.
Right?
Yeah.
It's hilarious because, honey, like if because I find that dumb. If you don't want your child to partake in these things, make your child stay at home.
Yeah. Shelter
Nothing
them
is
from the
gonna
world.
exactly nothing is gonna happen.
Like, not seeing a drag queen isn't going to make your child gay. It's not going to make them a drag queen unless that's who they are inside and that's who they want to be, and that's
Nothing is
seeing
gonna
someone
change
like
it.
us is giving them that like, oh hey, look, there's a
Confidence,
person that's
yeah.
doing that. It's really about representation. It's the biggest thing, is that if you see someone representing something that you like, you know, you see a firefighter out there and you really want to be a firefighter, you're like, oh cool, that looks so cool. You know, you see an actor or a singer, you're like, oh, like I really
Even
like
a
what they
doctor
do.
doesn't
Yeah.
mean I would want to be a doctor. Like, I can have the thought of wanting to be a doctor, but honey, I would not be a doctor because my path, my brain, everything is not in that
That might not
direction.
go the way for you. You could try it. You could
I
be like,
can
oh,
see
I'll
a
study
cop.
some medical books.
I can see a cop and be like, "Oh yeah, I want to be a cop, honey. I don't have the strength to put my life in line."
Yeah.
So it's
But
just
you can still comprehend like that exists as an option for you, whether or not you want to take it.
absolutely
And like, you don't have to go around shitting on people who want to be cops or firefighters or
exactly.
doctors, like,
So it's okay for cops to read books to kids, but it's not okay for drag performers to read books to
because
kids.
there's sexuality involved.
Come on,
Because
people.
they think that sexuality, as in like, you know, who you're attracted to, has is inherently sexual. But I'm like, okay, but you're straight. You're attracted to women or men. That's sexual. You know, you're not coming in to read to kids as a straight person and you're going to start talking about like sex.
It's just
We're
crazy.
not going to come in and talk to kids about, you know, gay sex or trans sex or something. Like, not trans isn't a sexuality, but like, you know, we're not going to talk about those things, especially when it's inappropriate
Yeah.
to talk about those things with children. Like,
some people just, and most of these people are white people, to be honest, because they're the ones who have the strength for that things. You know, you wouldn't see like a Asian or black person out there. I mean, there's few of them,
Well, yeah.
but they just keep it to themselves. You know.
To get into it a little bit, like it's just like I find that white people have not been oppressed in their life as much, so they can't imagine the struggle of, you know, someone coming up to you and like getting upset about you just
Yeah.
existing. Like they you know, I think that's like why my personal philosophy is that's why like you see a lot of white people like doing stupid shit on TikTok or like cliff jumping or like all those like weird extreme sports and stuff like that, because they've never had that like adrenaline just existing.
Yeah.
So they need to find it in other ways. They need to like literally put themselves into like dangerous situations or stupid situations for the fun of it, because they don't get that adrenaline rush just day to day, like as a person existing walking down the street. And I'm like, I don't want to put myself in any more dangerous situations as a person of color or as a trans woman, because like I already like, you know, have fear for my life just by existing, just by walking down the street sometimes.
Exactly.
So,
and it's funny, like even there are times I'm like, oh, if anyone walks up to me, I'll stand my ground, you know. But you never know what could happen in a split second, you know.
yeah.
There is a time when I worked at the bar, this crazy person was trying to fight with me, and the person is now a drag queen too. You know,
Say their names.
This one, I said it in my first episode, and like a lot of queens reached out to me, and they were like, "What the fuck is that person?" You know, and they were really ready to cancel this person, you know. But one of the queens was able to like just plea and like
just like talk to them.
Yeah, and it was like, because the person has apologized a long time ago, you know, but they were like, it doesn't matter, we need to put these bitches in their places. And I was like, oh, you need to relax, honey. Like, it's not that serious.
Right? It's not.
But like, I was grateful for the way they took it seriously.
Yeah.
And like, whenever I just said a bitch, I'm like, you're one lucky person. Because I know that day the person was intoxicated, right? Or something, under the influence of something.
Mm-hmm.
And this bitch wanted to fight me. I'm like, honey, it takes nothing to just knock you down.
Yeah.
You were skinny twink. I would just do my shit, you know. But then I'm like, what if this person has a gun? What if this person has a knife? You never know,
you don't
right?
know where it could go.
Exactly. So that's why I tell them, like, just stay laid back and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've come towards the end of the show.
Got really heavy at the end.
Just ignore it. Just ignore it.
It's still going.
Yeah, it is. Luckily it's the iPhone 14 Pro Plus. I don't know. But so where can we find you on Instagram or social media?
You can find me on Instagram at the Felicia Boneé. It's Bonee, Bone with an extra E. I am not on the site formerly known as Twitter anymore for my own mental health. And yeah, that's basically like the best place to find out what I'm doing. I don't really post very often anymore.
Where can we find you in any upcoming shows? I'll link in the bio.
I have a show coming up on Friday, so that's tomorrow. I don't know if this episode will be out by then.
I'll just post the clip today.
Yeah. And then so that's at Evo tomorrow, on Friday, August 11th. And then Edmonton Pride, I'm doing a performance on the 26th at Pride Fest in Churchill Square. That'll be really fun. And then I'm going to Calgary for Calgary Pride, because it's like the same, it's the weekend after. So I'll be performing there. I'm doing a show with Detox, I think, on a Friday, and another show on, basically shows almost every day there. So if you're in Calgary, you can check it out.
She's booked and busy.
Yeah, and then September hits and I start school, and it kind of falls off. But
thank you so much for being on this show. We've come to the end of the
course.
show. Are there any other things you'd like to say?
Thank you for having me.